3 spine-chilling weekend getaway horror stories, revealed secrets of Sinister, haunted retreats. The moment Jack parked the car, an unsettling chill clawed its way down his spine. The cabin looked charming from a distance, but as they drew closer, the woods seemed to swallow the sunlight whole, leaving only shadows that danced unsettlingly. The air was thick with silence, a silence so heavy it felt like a celebrity haunting every corner, echoing their own uneasy heartbeats. Emily tugged nervously at her mother's arm, her eyes darting around the towering trees that loomed over them like watchful sentinels. Sam bounced between excitement and fear, the pull of adventure battling with an unexplainable dread. Inside, the cabin exuded creaky nostalgia. Old photographs adorned the walls, their frames coated with dust that brushed against Jack's fingertips. These faces smiled into oblivion, carved in time like eerie warnings. Then they discovered a dusty diary, its yellowed pages filled with frantic scrawls. A woman's descent into paranoia stared back at them as she detailed her anguish. "They watch me from the woods," she wrote, her handwriting trembling. That single phrase clawed at Jack's gut, igniting something primal. As evening fell, the wilderness came alive with unsettling sounds. Twigs snapped under the weight of something unseen, the wind moaned through the trees, and the cabin itself groaned with unease. Jack clutched Emily and Sam tightly, insisting it was nothing but the hints of nature. "Just wildlife," he reassured, but Lisa's wry smile faltered. The neighbor's words danced in her mind, the hints of something dark just out of sight. Then their phones flickered, signaling no service. Panic rippled through the family. "Just a dead zone," Jack said, but Lisa's eyes betrayed her anxiety as she shuffled the board game pieces nervously. Sam's sudden whisper, "I saw someone at the edge of the woods," turned their tense laughter into ice. Jack grimaced, ready to dismiss it, but unease festered, blooming like a dark flower. Before long, the neighbor appeared again, his greeting now a vague warning laced with uncertainty. "You folks should think about leaving while you can," he murmured, an odd unease hanging between them. The man turned to leave, his gaze lingering in the trees, and for the first time, fear glimmered sharply in Jack's chest. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue." With daylight fading, shadows stretched like fingers across the room. Each creak of the floor felt like a secret being whispered. Tensions began to rise. Jack snapped at Emily when she whimpered about the dark. Lisa's voice trembled as she tried to keep peace, her heart breaking for them all. "This is supposed to bring us together," she muttered, but in each glaring look, the family was piling on unspoken resentments. Then, Sam's voice, trembling with dread, cut through the encroaching darkness. "There's someone watching us." His words hung in the air, weighty and soaking in fear. The eeriness of the night bore down upon them, making their breaths shallow and chests tight. One moment of griping safety broke. The door, old and unassuming, groaned open on its own. Whispers echoed from the woods, weaving around them like vines, sealing them within. Just outside those walls, something awaited, unseen and cunning, lurking at the periphery. The sense of dread thickened, each heartbeat was a countdown, marking the seconds until the truth clawed its way forward from the dark. One of them had already been marked. Silence fell like a blanket, heavy and suffocating. Jack's heart raced in his chest, the sound throbbing in his ears. He glanced back at Emily, whose wide eyes reflected the flickering candlelight. She tugged on her mother's sleeve, her expression a mixture of fear and confusion. "What is going on, Dad?" Jack searched Lisa's gaze, silently pleading for help, but her eyes were fixated on the darkened doorway. "Stay close," he instructed, his voice barely above a whisper, raw with apprehension. Every muscle in his body tensed as they huddled together. The door creaked again, this time more insistently, as if something wanted to enter, something that was desperate. Shadows wriggled in the corners of the room, stretching ominously, lacking weight as if they belonged to another world. Is it the neighbor? Sam stuttered, eyes darting toward the dark woods beyond. He looked scared. Jack tightened his grip around Emily, his stomach twisting in knots. Maybe he knows something we don't, he muttered, unsettling thoughts crashing through his mind like waves against jagged rocks. He now regretted not asking the neighbor more questions had they ignored a serious danger. A cold gust of wind rushed through the open door, snuffing out the candle flames and plunging them into darkness. They gasped, panic flooding the room as they squinted into the void. Jack fumbled for his phone, but the damned device remained useless, its screen just a blank, vacant stare. "Where's the flashlight?" Lisa said, her voice trembling. "We have to." But she couldn't finish. In the dark, even silence felt treacherous. Sam pulled a tablecloth over his head, whimpering as if it could shield him from whatever was lurking out there. Jack's breath quickened. Could it be just a prank? Maybe a mere figment of stress and isolation in this godforsaken cabin? With a sudden crack, a branch snapped outside, and every hair on Jack's neck stood on end. Panic surged, tripping over itself in a desperate rush to escape. "Enough, let us look outside. We have to figure this out." He forced the words from his throat, though doubt clawed at his confidence. Lisa hesitated, shaking her head. "No. We don't even know what's out there. We can't sit here, waiting to be found. Whatever it is, it will come for us if we do nothing." Jack's voice cracked, fear fueling his resolve. Finally, as a team, they moved toward the doorway. The moon's pale light trickled in, illuminating dust motes that swirled like lost souls. The air felt different, heavy with anticipation, almost as if the trees were collectively holding their breath. A rustle echoed from the tree line, and Jack hesitated, heart pounding painfully. "Did you hear that?" he asked breathlessly and turned to look back at the family. Sam let out a whimper. But what if it stopped?" Lisa interrupted, shaking her head fiercely. "We're together. We face this together." In unison, they stepped into the darkness. The air grew colder, each breath fogging into the chilling night. As they reached the edge of the woods, something shifted within the shadows. A figure emerged, a silhouette carved by moonlight lurking just inside the tree line, stealing light and sanity. "What do you want?" Jack yelled, his voice breaking through the thick tension. Silence answered, but just as Jack contemplated retreating, the figure leaned forward, revealing glinting eyes that pierced through the night. "Leave it," hissed, a raspy whisper echoing in the still air, sending shivers racing down Jack's spine. "Now!" the thing commanded, and fear gripped Jack's heart, testing the very limits of his courage. The cabin loomed behind them like a haunted relic, one he wasn't sure they could return to. Something wicked was waking, and the familiar feeling of safety was slipping further away, losing itself to the gripping unknown. As they turned back toward the cabin, the shadows began to shift and swell behind them. "What if we can't go back?" Emily gasped, innocence betrayed by the darkness creeping in closer. And in one instant, everything felt impossibly wrong. The air thickened with dread as Jack faced the figure that loomed just beyond the trees. Its eyes glimmered with malevolence, a void that seemed to consume the very light around it. "Leave it," hissed again, each syllable laced with a chilling urgency. A tremor ran through Jack's body. He could feel Lisa's trembling arm brushing against his. Sam whimpered softly from behind, clutching the tablecloth as if it were a shield. Emily, wide-eyed and frightened, stepped closer to him. "Look, it's just a person. Let us talk." Jack forced his voice to sound firm, but it broke under the weight of fear. The figure remained still, its breath visible in ghostly wisps as it studied them. You shouldn't be here, it rasped, the words slithering through the air like a poisonous fog. They're waiting. What do you mean? Who's waiting? Jack pressed, his mind racing for answers while logic fought to assert itself over the terror twisting his insides. The figure tilted its head as if amused by the question. They will find you. They'll take what is yours. Before Jack could respond, something shifted in the woods behind them, an unmistakable rustling, low and predatory. He turned, heart hammering wildly, as shadows deepened under the trees, merging into a formless mass. Mom, I want to go home. Sam whimpered, his voice breaking. Jack glanced back at Emily and Lisa, eyes filled with fear. Back inside. Now. They turned, fear propelling them toward the cabin, but dread clawed at Jack's heels. The figure shouted after them, a shrill warning, "You are not safe. They are coming." The back door creaked open as they rushed in. Jack slammed it shut, breathing heavily, heart pounding like a war drum. "Should we lock it?" Lisa asked, her voice shaking. Jack nodded, resolutely sliding the bolt into place. Had he made the right choice? The walls felt like they were closing in. Outside, a cacophony of rustling echoed, disorienting and relentless. "What the hell is happening?" he muttered, trying to steady his racing heart. "Dad, what did they mean?" Emily's voice was small, each word heavy like lead. Suddenly, the sound of scraping claws resonated against the wood, rhythmic and unsettling. Shadows loomed right outside the window, distorted figures shifting just beyond reach. Jack moved to the window, trying to peer outside, but it was black as coal, thick darkness consuming every familiar shape. "Stay away from the windows," Jack commanded, pulling Emily away. His hands trembled with fear. They could feel something pressing against the walls, a sinister force desperately scratching to get inside. "Look!" Lisa pointed towards the corner of their cabin where the darkness seemed to thicken, twisting and curling like an angry snake. It pulsed with energy, almost alive. "Cover the windows," Jack shouted, moving furniture in front of them. Time had stopped, every second stretching into eternity. As they barricaded the cabin in a frenzy, soft whispers rose from the darkness, a chilling cacophony of voices overlapping one another like a jigsaw of madness. "Help us, you will join. What do they want?" Emily cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. Jack turned to her, anguish piercing him like a dagger. "I don't know." Then silence hung heavy in the air, a void that suffocated hope. But their pause was short-lived. A loud bang against the door made them jump. "We will take what is yours," the voices melded together, resonating as though from the depths of the earth itself. Before they could react, the door creaked ominously, and with each ominous groan, it began to splinter, and in that moment of impending doom, a breaking sound echoed. A window shattered. Something had breached their fragile sanctuary. What dark apparition had begun to crawl inside? Or was it only the beginning of a nightmarish ordeal? "Get ready!" Jack yelled. But ready for what? As the shadows crept closer, they realized they might already be lost. The splintering of wood sent a panic rippling through the cabin. Jack's heart raced as he turned to face the door, which was now bowing inward under the relentless battering of unseen forces. The whispers grew louder, seeping through the cracks, a sinister chant, almost melodic, yet filled with malice. "Grab anything you can," Jack shouted, pressing his back against the door, voice strained with urgency. Lisa and Emily rushed to find anything to barricade the entrance. Sam, frozen in fear, gripped Jack's leg. "Please, Dad, don't let it in." His eyes were wide, tears spilling as he clutched a stuffed animal, sidekick in a battle he couldn't comprehend. "We're not going to let anything in," Jack promised, though his own words felt hollow. Chaos enveloped them as furniture flew across the room, pushed by a frantic instinct to survive. Metallic groans echoed from outside. What was out there? Jack dared a glance through the shattered window. Beyond the veil of darkness, forms twisted and writhed, faces indistinct yet haunting, merging and recoiling like a lake of souls trapped in torment. It felt as if they were watching him, waiting hungry. "Put the table in front of the door," Jack directed, feeling the weight of dread settle on his chest. Lisa and Emily scrambled to obey, but the door shuddered violently, collapsing their progress. "Jack!" Emily screamed, her voice cracking. "What if they take us?" "Don't say that," he shouted back, forcing determination into his tone despite the despair clawing at him. The door slammed again, splintering further as what felt like nails scraped against the wood, a horrible sound that reverberated into the depths of his soul. Jack turned to his family, desperation mixing with defiance. "No matter what happens, we stay together. We fight." The dark wail from outside rose in intensity, sorrowful yet threatening. "You cannot escape," they chanted, voices intertwining in a horrible symphony. "Join us." Let us in. Just then, a shadow broke free from the mass outside, darting towards the window where Jack stood. It was quick and sleek, a flash of swirling darkness that defied logic. A moment of stillness hung in the air before a figure materialized, face gaunt, eyes hollow and desperate. "Help! Help us!" it shrieked. Nausea rolled through Jack. That wasn't a plea, it was a trap. "Get back!" he yelled, launching himself toward the window, ready to shove anything off its ledge to sever the wretched vision. But before he could act, greasy hands gripped his arm, pulling him even closer to the aperture. He staggered, but he caught a brief glimpse of swirling souls behind the figure, a specter of despair, lifetimes lost in anguish, begging for salvation. "Dad!" Sam cried, pulling on Jack's pant leg, desperate to pull him back to safety. "Let go of him!" Lisa screamed, yanking her husband harder, her face pale with fear but fierce with love. In that instant of overwhelming dread, a crack echoed through the cabin. Not just the door but the very air seemed to fracture. The darkness surged against the walls, seeking vulnerability, creeping along the floor like oil. "Don't let them take you!" Jack shouted, battling the panic that flared inside him. He could feel the fear suffocating, threatening to pull him under like a tide. "Fight!" The lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows that danced wildly. Then, with a blinding flash, the power went out, plunging everything into suffocating darkness. In the pitch black, the whispers morphed into a terrifying roar, swirling around them. And then silence fell, thick and suffocating. Jack's heart pounded in the void, but something else beat softly in the darkness, irregular and syncopated, almost mocking what new horror waited for them in the enveloping blackness. The darkness seemed to breathe, an entity unto itself, heavy and suffocating. Jack strained to hear amidst the silence, every minor sound amplified in the void. Sam whimpered quietly, clinging tightly to Jack's leg as if his grip could tether them to reality. The suffocating tension twisted Jack's insides, igniting the rising panic coursing through his veins. "Lisa?" Jack's voice trembled, barely a whisper. The stillness swallowed his words. "Here," came her soft, shaky reply. The sound barely cut through the shadows, but Jack felt the warmth of her presence across the dark room. "Emily? Are you okay?" Jack called out, despite the chill creeping along his spine. "Yeah, Dad." Emily's voice quivered from the far corner, but it faded into the stillness, swallowed by the dread that hung thick in the air. Then came the rustling, faint and insidious as snakes slithering in the silence. Jack's breath caught as he strained to listen. The sound grew louder, as if something was moving, circling them in the dark. Something shifted behind him, and the hair on his neck prickled. An icy chill swept over him, crawling down his back. "Did you hear that?" Jack muttered, his voice raw. "It's just the wind, right?" Lisa tried to convince herself, but Jack could hear the quaver lacing her words. Then came a rasping, a tortured moan that seemed to seep through the walls themselves. Jack's heart raced, pounding in his ears. He turned instinctively toward the door, a desperate need to see what threatened them gnawed at his senses. "Are you all right?" Jack whispered to Sam, who was now shaking like a leaf. Scared was all his son could muster, and the vulnerability in his small voice pierced Jack's heart. "I know," Jack said, pulling Sam close. "Just stay by me." But then the whispers returned, a low murmur that crescendoed into a cacophony. "Let us enjoy lies beyond help us." The pitch of the voices morphed, it felt wrong, like shards scraping against an open wound. Jack tightened his grip on Sam, his eyes scanning the blackness, desperate for something, anything. Suddenly, shadows shifted against the walls, twisting and coiling with life as if they were drawing nearer. "Stay together!" Jack shouted, his resolve hardening. "We can fight this." But inside, doubts waged war. Would they even stand a chance? The shadows grew thicker, clawing at the edges of his sanity. Then a sudden crash broke the terror, sending a jolt through the cabin. Something heavy thudded against the door. His heart stopped for a beat. "Get the table!" Jack yelled, his voice breaking through the chaos. Emily and Lisa rushed to obey, scrambling as panic-fueled adrenaline surged within them. Jack looked around for something else, anything. His eyes landed on a kitchen knife lying dangerously close to the edge of the counter. "Emily! Can you grab the knife?" "Right!" she shouted, lunging for it. With newfound energy, the family prepared to face whatever lay beyond the door. The thrumming continued, but a faint light flickered, ghostly and dim, spilling beneath the door, casting grotesque shadows that danced with malice. Just as Jack thought they might have a chance against the pounding force outside, the doorknob rattled violently, a sign that their time was running out. "Hold on!" he yelled, bracing against the door as the rhythmic thuds increased in ferocity, each one ripping through his nerves. Suddenly, a voice cut through the tumult, sharp and clear like glass. "You think you can keep us out forever?" It hissed, a mocking tone laced with a disembodied laughter. Jack's blood turned to ice. In the harrowing silence that followed, a new realization settled in. The darkness had a voice, and it wasn't he going to stop. And then, the lights flickered back on for just a split second, illuminating their surroundings. Jack's breath was stolen as he saw a figure slip through the crack, eyes glinting in the dim light. It was just a shadow, at first, but with each heartbeat, it stretched into something more sinister. What new terror would they face now, and could they survive the night? The shadow emerged, twisting and writhing as it slid through the door's crack. Jack stifled a scream, uncertainty clawing at him. It wasn't he merely a figure, it was a collection of darkness, as if the nightmares of the past had been conjured into a physical form. "Run!" he barked, shoving Sam and Lisa toward the far wall. Emily stood paralyzed, the glimmering knife forgotten in her hand. "Emily! Move!" The moment broke her trance. She sprinted toward Jack, her small feet pounding against the floor like a warning bell. The shadow expanded, its edges flickering in the dim light like flame-licked parchment. "Don't look back!" Jack screamed, pushing them forward. "We need to find a way out." But the cabin distorted as the peril drew closer. The walls began to pulse, exhaling cold air that carried the distinct scent of decay. Jack could feel the heartbeat of the place active, alive, and diabolical. "Where is the exit?" Lisa gasped, frantically scanning the encroaching darkness as it engulfed their sanctuary. "There." Jack pointed to the back door at the end of the narrow kitchen. His throat felt tight. The shadow's whispered promises intensified. "Join us, be free, embrace the darkness." Each word slipped through the air like venom. Jack couldn't afford to think. "Get moving," he urged, shoving Emily ahead and ushering Sam towards the rear. They sprinted, the ancient floorboard protesting beneath their weight. Jack pressed his shoulder against the door, flinging it open just as the whispering shadows lunged. The night slashed at them, cold wind biting through the thin fabric of their clothes. Go, go! Jack yelled, his voice barely breaking through the howling wind. They scrambled outside, hearts racing, breaths escaping in sharp gasps. But relief turned to dread as he turned back. A wall of shadows wove behind them, cascading out of the cabin like an avalanche. The figure that had slipped through seemed to grow, extending a clawed hand towards the fleeing family, its fingers curling like sick, twisted roots. "Jack!" Emily screamed. He grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the towering pines lining the edge of the property. The dense trees loomed like sentinels against the encroaching chaos, their branches scraping at the sky, as if wanting to shield them from the horror. "Stay close," Jack commanded, hurrying them into the thick underbrush. The darkness roared behind them, a sound of fury and anguish. He could feel it reaching for them, grasping at the edges of his mind. "Daddy, what is it?" Sam whimpered, his tiny voice breaking with fear. "It's nothing," Jack lied. "Just keep running." But his heart knew the truth. This wasn't just an entity, it was a force that fed on fear, and it was hungry. They broke through the trees and stumbled into a clearing bathed in moonlight, but there was no safety here. The darkness poured from the trees, pooling like liquid nightmares, consuming the ground. Each heartbeat thudded in Jack's ears, matching the tempo of their terror. "Look!" Lisa pointed frantically. At the other end of the clearing stood an old barn, a forgotten relic of another time. It beckoned them with a promise of sanctuary, or maybe another horror waiting to be unleashed. "Inside!" Jack yelled, not waiting for a response. As they dashed toward the barn, the shadows swarmed behind them, dark tendrils reaching out hungrily. But as they reached the threshold, the barn doors creaked open, revealing an unsettling darkness within, deeper than the night itself. What awaits inside? Jack wondered. Could this be their escape or another trap set by the darkness? They paused, the sinister whispers clawing at their resolve. In that moment, Jack could feel the choice. Embrace the sinister unknown or face the terror creeping behind them. One choice could lead to freedom, the other could seal their fates. What lurked inside the barn, waiting to welcome them? Jack pushed the kids through the barn doors, heart pounding, breath rasping in his throat. Shadows danced inside the barn, swirling like smoke. The musty scent of straw and decay hit him hard, mixing with the stale air. It was claustrophobic, the walls felt like they were closing in. "Stay together," he ordered, gripping Emily's hand tightly. He could hear the distant whispers still chasing them, and he glanced back as the doors creaked ominously, the darkness outside looming like a beast ready to pounce. Inside, everything felt wrong. The dim light from the moon slanted through broken windows, casting distorted shapes across the floor, twisted beams that looked like grasping fingers. "Where do we go?" Lisa asked, her eyes wide with fear. "Over there." Jack gestured to a staircase leading up to a loft, likely meant for hay but now just a shadowy refuge. "If we can get up high, maybe it will lose us." They hurried toward the stairs, the creaking wood groaning under their weight. Sam lagged behind, glancing nervously at the door as if expecting it to burst open. "Daddy, what if it follows us?" "Just keep moving," Jack snapped, trying to keep his voice steady. Panic crept into his tone, betraying his false sense of calm. As they climbed, the darkness stirred below like an animal sniffing out its prey. Jack felt a rush of cold air blow upward, wrapping around them, amplifying an overwhelming sense of dread. The whispers sharpened, growing frenzied. Jack clenched his teeth, forcing himself not to listen. They reached the top of the stairs and peered into the loft. The space was laden with dust and covered in cobwebs. Old farming tools hung from the walls, rusted and menacing. It felt like a graveyard for lost dreams, yet they had no choice. "Is this safe?" Emily's voice trembled. "No," Jack admitted flatly, "but it's better than being out there." He pulled her close, feeling the warmth of her small body against the encroaching cold. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from below. The shadow had found its way in, knocking over boxes with a force that was almost animalistic. Panic surged again, fear took form, scraping at Jack's resolve. Quick! He scanned the loft for anything they could use. Help me move this. He pointed to an old, worn trunk. They shoved it in front of the steep staircase, desperately trying to create a barrier. Daddy, it's coming! Sam cried, pointing toward the staircase where the shadows began to creep up, tendrils curling and writhing as if testing for a way through. With a roar like a frenzied beast, the darkness lunged forward, towering over them like a storm ready to break. Jack's heart raced, he could feel the children's fear wash over him, tightening his throat. Don't stare at it! He shouted. Close your eyes. But how could he expect them to do that when terror was unfolding like a nightmarish play? They would be caught in its grip if they didn't flee. Yet to leave the safety of the loft meant surrendering to the horror below. Emily breathed, her face pale, eyes wide with terror. What do we do? The air felt electric, charged with unspoken fear. Shadows writhed, coiling tighter, clawing at their sanctuary. It was decision time. Fight or run. Maybe there's a way out, he whispered, searching for an escape. Then he noticed on the far side of the loft, there was a window, thin and cracked but just big enough to squeeze through. Over here. Jack led them toward it. But as he reached up to shove the window open, the darkness below surged like a tidal wave, hungry and relentless. Jack froze, realizing the threat wasn't just behind him. It had integrated itself into their very surroundings, lurking in corners, waiting to pounce. Daddy! Lisa cried, eyes darting frantically. Get ready! He motioned the others forward, adrenaline sharpening his senses. Could they outsmart it? The whispers grew louder, promising freedom, twisting words that offered everything but safety. It was a cruel game, manipulating their hopes as it unfurled its shadowy limbs. Just one mistake could mean doom. And they had no idea what lay beyond that window. What awaited them in the suffocating shadows racing ever closer below? Jack's fingers trembled as he tried to push the window open. The wooden frame resisted, the sound of metal scraping against wood echoed unervingly through the upside-down gloom. Sweat beaded on his forehead as the whispers below grew louder, wrapping around his mind like a vice. Come on, come on! He urged, desperation creeping into his voice. Emily clutched her brother, eyes shining with tears. Lisa's small hands fidgeted at her sides, caught between hope and dread. Each second felt like an eternity as he shoved harder against the window. Finally, it gave way, swinging open with a scream that pierced the silence. A rush of chilling air blasted over them, the smell of night and damp earth pouring inside. The darkness below seemed to shriek in frustration as the shadows recoiled. Out! Jack commanded, giving a firm push to Emily. He could see the gaps in the ground below, a swirling void where the whispers morphed into anguished cries. Emily hesitated, glancing back at the encroaching darkness. I don't want to. Trust me. You have to go. Jack urged, his own voice cracking under the weight of his fear. She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks, and slipped through the window. Sam followed, a look of determination on his face, as if small bravery could overcome the chaos. Lisa hesitated as the darkness hissed below, but Jack was there, gripping her shoulder. Let us go. He had to follow them. The shadows began to thrash wildly, angry at their escape, tendrils reaching out in desperation. Jack climbed through the window just in time, feeling the icy fingers swipe against his back. He landed softly on the outside, adrenaline surging like fire through his veins. They stumbled into the acute darkness, each child grasping their father's hand. No light, no solace, just the sound of the barn behind them, creaking and groaning like a living creature. The oppressive weight of the night pressed down, wrapping them in cold dread. Where do we go now? Lisa panted, clutching Jack's arm. Just follow me. He snapped, frantic but resolute. They dashed away from the barn, feeling like prey fleeing a predator. But the ground was uneven, roots snagging at their feet. Jack felt the pull of panic rise as they reached the edge of the woods behind the barn, a dark wall of trees standing watch over the night. What lay hidden within? Stay close. He ushered them into the forest, each rustle and snap of a twig sounding like a gunshot in the stillness. Shadows flickered between the trees as if alive, stretching out and clawing for them. He could hear the whispers growing more frantic, echoing his own racing thoughts. Daddy! Sam's voice trembled. What if it finds us here? Jack's heart thudded violently as he looked back. The barn was mere shapes in the dark, the looming shadows swirling like smoke, but now there was a different sound mixed in a low growl, rising from somewhere deep within the woods. Run! He shouted, and they burst deeper into the trees. The thicket snapped at their legs, pulling them back as branches clawed at their cheeks. The forest felt alive, teeming with shadows and unseen eyes watching them flee. Breathless, Jack pushed ahead, the children behind him, their breaths loud and frightened. But as they ran, the ground shifted. A low rumble erupted, pulling at the earth beneath them. Jack barely managed to stay on his feet, throwing an arm back to steady Lisa as she stumbled. What was that? Emily screamed, her face etched with terror. Jack's own fear swelled in his throat, threatening to spill over. I don't know. Just keep running. But the growl rolled closer, vibrating through the earth, making the trees shudder. An overpowering scent of decay poured from somewhere deep in the darkness, curling around them like fog. Then, out of nowhere, a figure loomed before them, a silhouette rising against the night, taller than any man. Its features remained hidden, but Jack could almost feel the weight of its malice crushing him. Run! He shouted again, panic bursting forth. But the figure didn't move, it simply stood there, absorbing them into its shadow. Jack felt time stretch when a thought flashed through his mind: had they stumbled into something worse? Just as he turned to flee, an electric spark of realization struck him. They weren't just running from the whispers anymore. They were running towards something far darker. What had they awakened in the woods? And would they ever escape? Jack's breath pounded in his chest like a drum. The dark figure didn't move, but an invisible pull dragged at him, as if the very air thickened with dread. The whispers crescendoed, their haunting tonality warped and twisted. They were close now, insidious, sucking the warmth from the night. Stay here! He shouted, and with a savage lunge, he took a step towards the silhouette. The moment his foot hit the ground, another tremor rolled through the forest. A savage growl echoed from behind the figure, primal and harsh. Jack froze. Jack! Sam's voice sliced through the tension, frantic, wide-eyed. We have to go. Please. As he turned back to his children, he was struck by a horrible thought: what if they were being led into a trap? The growling grew louder, a guttural sound reverberating through the trees. Seconds felt like hours, stretching out under the weight of the unknown. Quickly, this way! Jack shouted, abandoning his moment of hesitation. He grabbed Lisa's hand and ushered Emily and Sam to his side. They pushed further into the depths of the forest, where ancient trees swallowed the light and thick underbrush snagged at their clothing. With every step, Jack fought to drown out the whispers, the growl, and the weight of fear pressing down on him. He felt it creeping up from the shadows, something dark and waiting. Jack, I can't! Emily cried, her voice quaking as she struggled to keep up. I can't see anything. Just close your eyes and hold on tight. He replied, his heart racing. The forest twisted around them, eerie stillness mingling with the rustling leaves, making him feel like they were being watched. Then, the shadows shifted. The silhouette reappeared, looming closer than before. Jack stumbled, fear clawing at his throat. Run! He yelled again, and this time they bolted like deer in the open. The growl echoed behind them, gaining on them like a predator closing in. Just ahead, a clearing suddenly broke through, the moonlight spilling down like a spotlight. Jack seized the moment, pushing the children toward the open space. Relief flooded him, but was quickly crushed as another chill wrapped around his being. Something wasn't right. The air felt alive, heavy with an unknown presence. Eyes unseen were watching from the trees, mocking their flight. "Where do we go?" Sam asked, panic filling his voice. Jack scanned the clearing, breathless. "There. Out there." He pointed towards a massive rock formation, jagged and stark against the moonlit sky. It appeared like a fortress, a refuge from malevolence. They sprinted toward it, the whispers and growls reaching a fever pitch. As they neared the rocks, a sound stopped Jack cold, a child's laughter, sweet and sinister, bubbling through the night air. He skidded to a halt, grasping Lisa's shoulders. It didn't come from any of them, it belonged to someone else, someone who should not have been there. "Did you hear that?" Jack whispered, his voice trembling. The laughter faded into hushed chortles, echoing around them, teasing, beckoning. The shadows seemed to shift again, swirling around the edges of the clearing. Jack tightened his grip on the children, unsure which direction to flee. They had entered into something much more dangerous than whispers and growls. Their only choice was to confront whatever dwelled in that night and the laughter that cut through the air, a sound tinged with both innocence and terror. "Jack," Emily breathed, her voice catching as she locked eyes with him. He felt a chill run down his spine. "We go forward. No matter what." But what awaited them in the rocks? What binding ties held the darkness together? They had yet to discover the true nature of the evil they had awakened, and as they stepped forward, a chilling realization washed over him. What if the thing behind them had already found them? Next, all would unravel around them in a way that would change everything they thought they knew about fear. The moment they stepped into the haunting embrace of the rock formation, Jack felt the air shift. It thickened, charged with a foreboding that made his skin crawl. Shadows twisted and writhed, dancing mockingly against the cold, unyielding stone. The laughter, the sweet, sinister laughter, echoed again, sending chills racing down their spines. "Stay close," Jack ordered, his voice harsh and steady, as the twisted echoes spiraled around them. The children gripped his hands tighter, hearts pounding in sync with the dark energy surrounding them. "Where are we?" Lisa whispered, eyes darting nervously to the dark recesses of the rock formations, shadows bubbling like forgotten secrets. Instead of answering, Jack pressed forward, compelled to find the source of that eerie laughter. They stepped deeper into the cleft of the rocks, each footfall echoed within like a shadow of dread. Suddenly, the path opened into a cavernous space, bathed in wavering moonlight filtering through crevices above. "Look!" Emily pointed, her voice a mix of awe and terror as they spotted shapes moving at the edges of illumination. Figures cloaked in shadow, tracing patterns of despair like streaks of ink against the stone. "Are those people?" Sam asked, his voice trembling. Jack's heart tightened. The silhouettes appeared almost human, but their forms twisted unnaturally, shifting and distorting in the light. A wave of dread washed over him. "They're lost," Jack muttered. A lump formed in his throat as he felt their ethereal yearning for freedom. Each one was a cautionary tale, a face caught in an endless search for release. "No," Lisa gasped, taking a step backward. "We need to leave, Jack. This place isn't right." But before he could respond, the child's laughter erupted again, now closer, reverberating through the cavern walls. Something was drawing nearer, charging the atmosphere with malicious intent. The figures began to murmur in unison, their voices layered over one another, filling Jack's head with haunting promises. "Join us," they beckoned. "Find the peace within the darkness." Jack clutched Emily and Sam tighter, fighting the cold sweat forming on his brow. "Don't listen," he shouted, trying to cut through the sonic web woven by their despair. "Fight it. Lisa urged fiercely, echoing his sentiments, her grip tightening on Jack's arm. In that charged moment, the shadows surged, an entity rising abruptly from the depths of the darkness. It materialized before them, a writhing mass that formed into something resembling a child, a reflection of innocence, stitched together with malice and grief. "What do you want?" Jack shouted, his voice trembling. "Come," play it intoned sweetly, voice dripping with poison. It reached out, hands curving into twisted claws, beckoning them closer, urging them to forget their fear, to embrace the eternity hidden in these stones. "No!" Jack shouted again, breaking through the seductive whispers. "We won't give in. We're not yours." "Join," the child figure rasped, its voice shifting into something dark and monstrous. "Let us free you." Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble, a violent quake that shook the very foundation of the cavern. Jagged stone splintered, and shadows writhed, gathering strength like clouds before a storm, dark tendrils stretching toward them, hungry. "Run!" Jack yelled. In an explosive burst of adrenaline, he grabbed the kids by their arms and pushed them toward a narrow passage at the side of the cavern. The figures shrieked, their cries a twisted blend of rage and despair. "Do not let them touch you!" Lisa cried, dragging Sam after Jack, as shadows clawed at their heels, angry wails reverberating through the stone. They squeezed through the narrow passage, fingers brushing against the walls damp with anguish, the sound of shadowy fingers scraping echoed behind them. The laughter came again, now haunting, echoing through the passage like a siren urging them back. Just ahead, light glimmered, a faint glow that beckoned them, promising an end to the suffocating darkness. Jack surged forward, pushing through the tight space, pulling the children along as he felt the cold grip of shadows closing in. Out they tumbled into the moonlit clearing, gasping for precious air, the cool night wrapping around them like a protective veil. But behind them, the dark figures erupted from the rocks, spiraling out into the open air, their chilling cries filling the stillness of the night. "This way!" Jack tugged at his family, sprinting towards the dense trees, their hearts pounding, breaths mingling in panic. The darkness was alive, shaping itself into a writhing mass, chasing them as they fled towards the tree line. As they stumbled away from the looming shadows, Jack could feel the desperation radiating from them like heat. The night thickened around them, but he kept moving, they had to find safety. "Keep going," he urged, his heart hammering in his chest, panic igniting his every nerve. "Don't look back. Not now." The shadows behind them grew louder, the whispers morphing into anguished screams echoing the darkness that clawed at their heels. Jack dared a glance back just as he plunged into the tree line. The sight made his heart race. The lost souls hovered just at the edge of the forest, reluctant to follow, their anguished faces painted with want, desperate to reclaim what they lost. But they wouldn't let it claim them. "Not now. Come on!" Jack hollered, pushing deeper into the woods. The children followed faithfully, hearts hammering in fear. As dawn began to break, sepulchral shadows faded, retreating into the whispers of a nightmare, leaving only the soft rustle of leaves people have long forgotten. They stumbled out of the dense woods just as the first rays of sun broke the horizon. Fixing their eyes on the world coming to life, Jack felt an overwhelming sense of relief wash over him, a low hum of hope coaxing them forward. "We did it," Emily murmured. "Yes," Lisa said, breathless. "We made it." But Jack felt the shadows still lingering at the edges of his hope, waiting and watching the world reshape itself around them, vibrant but riddled with memories of what they had faced. They might have escaped that night, but they would forever carry the weight of what hides in the dark. And they would always remember that the night they faced shadows was not the end but a constant battle between light and darkness that still longs for a way into the soul. The chilling reality was that shadows never truly dissipate. They only wait, and so the family walked on, hand in hand, vowing protection for each other, hope refusing to flicker out against the darkness that always lingers just behind the veil of daylight. "Now let me tell you something urgently important." Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will send chills down your spine. Smash that like button now, do it to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this intense ending. You know how much I want to hear what you think. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. You need to support our channel through these actions. Only true fans understand how vital they are.